With the Greenland issue, the United States has opened Pandora's box internationally, but the European Union is absent. Would it really be that dangerous if they left NATO, even if just for their own dignity? That's what we're going to look at next. What can the European Union really do in the event of a sudden attack by the United States? Why is it really not doing anything? What has been the American plan since the beginning of all this? Since the very start? It's no longer clear whether it's since Russia's special military operation or from much earlier. Ultimately, the European Union, the United States, Russia, China, and now the whole world are being reshaped moment by moment. What role does that leave for old Europe? Let's take a look at it next. Would the European Union lose too much, Nicholas, if they left NATO? And Russia has already made it clear that they're not interested in attacking them. Do it for dignity. At least then they can't be treated like trash like Donald Duck does. Go ahead, Nicholas. In part, they wouldn't lose that much because in the long run, they would gain sovereignty. But on the other hand, it would be almost absolute devastation for the territory of the European Union for a very simple reason. All this time, especially in recent years, the special military operation, all this time, they have been showing greater and greater dependence on the United States in terms of energy. In military terms, the European Union has its own armies, as it consists of several populous countries. By carrying out a slightly larger mobilization and actually calling people up, even if it's in terms of mandatory military service, like Spain used to have at one point, for example, they could gather quite a few. The thing is that the European Union has historically opted for professional armies in recent decades, which right now they are not. I mean, they've clearly lost the arms race, even though they have very good technology. Some countries in particular, like France, for example, or the United Kingdom, which is no longer part of the European Union. But, well, they still have something left, and we could describe it in some way. There are some individual points there that are quite good. There are things that Poland, for example, could almost give lessons on, but it has very little production, very low production. The warehouses that were indeed full of old weapons, packed with old weapons, have now been emptied because of the war in Ukraine. Now, in addition, air defense, well, they produce something, but a large part of it. And NATO buys them from the United States. And above all, because of NATO, they have developed an unparalleled dependence on American military power. Who has contributed the most to NATO economically? Who has contributed the most to NATO militarily? It is the United States military bases that are supposedly ensuring the independence of European territories. But of course, it is also the United States military bases that are in some way ensuring European dependence. Because if tomorrow they say, we're leaving NATO, to hell with it, how would the United States take it? Especially Donald Trump. How much extra would they actually charge? We've already seen this happen in Ukraine. Of everything the United States has been contributing to NATO and everything the European Union now effectively owes them, what would the reactions be? What about the United States from the United States intelligence services facing the current powers of the European Union, which, as it is, Donald Trump already finds truly unbearable? But now, notice that they've been inside NATO itself, of course, working, meaning from the United States, first of all, gathering huge amounts of dirt. So now, with European society, with the European Union being at one of its weakest moments, it turns out that the United States, if they wanted to defend their sovereignty, would have a very hard time. They would have to come and beg Russia on their knees. They would have to come and beg China on their knees after having told their people that Russia and China are the enemy. So just think about that. Let's see who challenges them. Europeans, we've made mistakes. At the very least, most of the leaders who have been spouting this rhetoric would have to resign. But not only that, at the moment, Europe's energy sovereignty doesn't exist. It is almost entirely dependent on the United States. Alternative agreements, for example, with Algeria. Italy is involved in this matter. It should have been Spain, but, well, it seems that Morocco has the Spanish government somewhat by the balls. Also, due to some kind of investigations that I can't even tell you for sure if they were really carried out by the Moroccan secret services or rather by the American secret services. I mean, just at first glance, well, damn. Let them send the United States to hell and really stand up in this act of fighting for their own sovereignty. And they said, well, now we're going to rewrite it, starting from scratch, but economically speaking, really. Everything they've been doing to interconnect the institutions of the European Union at the highest level, especially the monetary ones, and the American institutions. Everything that depends on the euro. I mean, everything the euro depends on the dollar. Sorry. Everything they've printed in terms of euros and everything, they're going to have to pay back to the United States, just like they're going to have to do in the North Atlantic Alliance. So there are a lot of open fronts. And above all, that European democracies, on one hand, claim to ensure a supposed level of well-being within the countries of that same European Union. Now they have ended up being the very trap of the different European governments, of the entire European Union. When it comes to wanting and being able to stand up to the United States, they only last 4 years because each one is afraid for their seat, and they only have 4 years to fill their pockets, wide open to politics. Now, with a 4-year term, nobody comes in to do anything that will go down in history. Nowhere do they even try to leave their own party in the best possible shape. And in most cases, not even that. That is to say, the ability to take action now is absolutely minimal on the part of the European Union. They can act, but to truly accomplish things and endure challenges, some essentials are needed. Well, actually, an endless number of things are needed. But at the very least, 2 things are necessary. In particular, you need to have guts and to have at least some knowledge, that is, to have at least a minimum of statesman-like thinking at the international level, which I believe the vast majority of leaders in the European Union, and also to do it in a victorious way. You would need at least a few leaders of the political stature of Vladimir Putin to actually face the consequences that would inevitably come as a response from the American side. Otherwise, getting involved there is practically suicide. And I repeat, we go back to reason number 1. They don't have what it takes. They don't have the guts to actually get involved in this matter. And to have, even if it's just a minimal chance of coming out victorious. And most importantly, neither the possibility nor the will. They're there, holding on, weathering things a bit, riding out the storm, seeing if this happens, seeing if that happens, seeing if it passes, just waiting to see. Somehow, they manage to cling to their seats. The policy of the European Union now is misfortune, the main reason for the European Union's misfortune. So it's hardly going to be able to get itself, that same European Union, out of a mess of such proportions.